Forage for Change projects. What's it about? So today's agenda, we've got a bit of welcome and housekeeping, which we've sort of already done. Oh, here we go. Adrian's joining. Perfect. And we've got the project backgrounds, aims and objectives. We'll discuss the project partners. So the majority of the project partners are here today, but those that can't join us, myself, Nicola and Holly can cover those partners that aren't here today. We'll go through what the project activity is going to entail. And what the project outputs are, and then we'll give you guys an opportunity to join the Q&A as and when if you've got any specific questions you want to raise or any queries, then hopefully the project team can answer that for you. Good morning, Adrian. How are you? Can you hear us okay?
Yeah, good, thanks.
Wonderful.
Nicola, we're all good.
Perfect. And that's just in time as well. So I was just explaining to the people that joined the call. We've got another one. That most of the project team are here today, and then after the presentation, people will turn their cameras on and they can join for a bit of an open Q&A if they wish.
Perfect.
So, and it's perfect timing as well, Adrian, because that leads me on to so we've done welcome to housekeeping, leads on to the project background and overview. So I'm going to hand over to Adrian Thornton-Berry. So he's the farmer lead on this project and sort of the instigator really of why we've all got together and done the project. But I don't know if Adrian want to just share a few words or the reasoning behind the project and why you wanted to get involved and where we're going really.
Yeah, thanks, Nicola. Yeah, we're farming here in Wensdale in the Yorkshire Dales National Park. We have a mixture of sort of improved habitats, and we have quite a lot of semi-natural habitats, including moorland here on the farm. And the pressure in farming at the moment is to try and produce meat type sheep, and everyone seems to be switching. And my shepherd's saying we should be pushing more into half-bred sheep and moving away from the Swaledales, which is not. I just feel that's probably not the right way for the environment. And I thought, well, if we can show that the Swaledale sheep on the naturally the more native moorlands and native grasslands produce less methane than lowland sheep grazing the same lowland type sheep, Texel crosses, that sort of thing, grazing the same habitat, then that's something that could be deemed an environmental good. But I just think the Swaledales are sort of, they're part of our generational history here in this part of the world, and they thrive on the moorlands and the low intensive pastures. And it would be a great sadness if they were lost off the hills. So unless we can find a way to try and get effectively an environmental good from having sheep grazing, and I think sheep grazing will be required in future in some way, shape or form. The idea that there'll be no sheep really doesn't make much sense to me at all. Therefore, we're trying to look for the benefits of Swaledale sheep on these semi-natural habitats and the fact that they'll be better in terms of greenhouse gases than the lowland, more intensive breeds.
Brilliant. Thank you, Adrian. And obviously here at NSA, we're very much about every breed has its purpose. There's a lot of different breeds within the sheep sector. We've got over, I think, 83 or 84 different breed societies affiliated with NSA. And that just demonstrates the sort of diversity we have within the sheep sector. And we're very much of the opinion that it's all about the right sheep in the right place. So as Adrian's saying, there are certain sheep adapted to certain environments where you couldn't have one breed from perhaps a lowland breed up in the hills and uplands because they wouldn't survive and they wouldn't thrive. So it's utilising the right breeds in the right place, and that's really what this project's about. So we're aiming to sort of look at Swaledale sheep, and Adrian also has some Texel crosses within his system, grazing on quite a different diverse forage. So obviously they've got a farm that spans sort of very
well, it goes from the river at sort of 300 feet above sea level to 1,800 feet above sea level where the moorland is. So we've got every type of grassland habitat you could wish for.
And we'll go a little bit into the experimental design later. So Nicola will jump in on the experimental design side of things later as how we're going to do the assessments. But essentially, we're going to be using those different two breeds of sheep. We're going to be undertaking portable accumulation chamber measurements. So we're looking at emissions within those two different breeds of sheep grazing on different forage types. And there's not really been much exploration within research of, I guess, different breeds and what emissions are produced from different breeds of sheep, and then also how forage and diet play a part. We're all aware that sheep breed will probably affect methane emissions, and we're aware of, I guess, how different forage grazed will also affect methane emissions. But I'm not sure someone's done it on sort of one farm with two breeds in a one farm setting before, which is sort of why this project has been evolved from. And it is just a 12-month, 1 year project with the hope that with whatever is found from this project, we could then take it further and perhaps do it in more breeds across more diverse habitats, grazing different landscapes across the whole of the UK is kind of where we see this going forwards. So the aims and objectives, and again, project team, feel free to jump in if you feel more obliged to. So we're hoping to sort of define mitigation strategies for upland sheep farmers to increase efficiency and reduce emissions. We're hoping to try and optimise the productivity of the native Swaledale sheep on that local upland landscape and vegetation they're adapted to, and it could potentially lead to less carbon loss of methane. And as I said before, we're trying to look at sort of breed, environment and diet because they're key factors within key considerations to care about when you're looking at greenhouse gas mitigation strategies, and the fact that we've got that limited evidence there on what we can look at already. And the outcomes we'd aim for would be to support upland farmers to improve productivity and financial resilience. We're all facing challenges as farmers at the moment, but I think particularly in the hills and the uplands, there's a lot of policy decisions being made with very siloed thinking objectives, and they're not obviously always thinking about the sort of public goods they're being delivered alongside maybe hitting net zero targets. It's kind of a very siloed one focused thinking, and hopefully the results of this project would help highlight some of that evidence that we need there to support those statements. And we're looking to utilise breeds efficient to local landscape. So again, trying to use that right breed in the right location motto, and exploit the most appropriate grazing resources as an opportunity to reduce input costs and increase profitability. And it could potentially lead to premium markets. So, for example, you look at the Herdey and the Herdwick breed, they've sort of captivated that Herdwick breed in its local environment in a grazing in the Lake District National Park, and they're able to utilise the Herdwick meat within local pubs, local shops, and they kind of cottoned onto that local market, local breed, local heritability. So as Adrian was saying, you've got Swaledales in the Yorkshire Dales. They're a traditional breed. People go there to see them, and it would be a real shame if that breed was lost within the sheep sector. And we could hopefully try and display the financial benefits to encourage upland farmers for the most appropriate sheep breeds, say in the most suitable habitats, trying to increase that positive impact on sustainability, as well as sort of biodiversity, the environment, but as well as being a productive business. The project team you're working with is a really opportunity for us to let you know who we are and why the project teams come together. And I think we're in a really good position to be a very good, collaborative, supportive team that all has different niches, but all comes together to bring quite a good, strong project team to deliver what we're aiming to do. So I'll start with Adrian. I don't know if you want to introduce yourself. You sort of already have.
I've probably got it all in a bit of a muddle. Such lovely weather at the moment. You get up early and get on. So we're running a family farming partnership. As I said earlier, raises between the land rising from the river Yor down in the bottom at 400 foot. And we have some interesting glacial deposits down there with we've had no fertilizer or muck on 3 or 4 fields down there, and they are incredibly herb rich now. With sort of limited grazing, and it is about as diverse sward as I've seen anywhere. So that's there down in the bottom, and then our middle land is where the soils are better, and we have grown wheat on them, whole crop for dairy farmers. So yeah, we can do 4 cuts of silage a year, so it's full bore, and the sheep fit into that, and that's where the sort of Texel cross sheep tend to be used sort of around the silaging. And then we go right up onto the tops where we've got moorland regeneration, a lot of bilberry, and sort of mixed sward up there, which again has been lightly grazed, and that the dwarf habitat shrubs have come back quite successfully. So we've got the different vegetation types, and we've got the different breeds. So we have a swale flock that tends to go up on the top ground, and we've got the Texels that tend to hang about in the middle. So I'm a partner with my wife and son in this family farming partnership business.
Great.
Yeah.
Perfect. Thanks, Adrian.
Good, no problem.
So again, I say Adrian was the reason behind the project starting in the first place. So he sort of brought us all together.
And I'm a core member of the Swaledale and Wensleydale Environmental Farmers Group. So this is all looking at natural capital goods. So it sort of all ties in.
Brilliant. So National Sheep Association hopefully needs no introduction to the people on the call today. So I'm Nicola Noble. I lead on the projects here at National Sheep Association. We're a membership organisation trying to represent the views and interests of all sheep farmers across the country. And really our key goal is knowledge exchange opportunities. So we're playing a key role within this project in terms of knowledge exchange within farmer, industry and policymakers. As I sort of alluded to before, policymakers are quite keen to sort of reduce grazing livestock in those less favoured areas. And we're really keen to highlight the critical role of grazing livestock sort of in not only delivering nutritious food and fibre, producing sustainable fibre, but also providing a wide range of other public goods that are kind of often overlooked by policymakers with that siloed thinking of net zero targets, and then maybe forgetting about the way grazing livestock deliver for biodiversity and potentially reducing wildfire risks through grazing and trampling, supporting rural communities and sort of creating habitats. So Adrian said, he's a family farm with himself, his wife, his son, and hopefully, I guess, if there was another generation that joins the family, that you'd hope they take on that partnership. So it's really supporting those rural communities and trying to make sure we emphasise the importance of grazing sheep in the hills and the uplands. So we're playing a key role on the knowledge exchange side of things. I will hand over to Nicola Lamb at SRUC.
Thanks, Nicola. Yeah, so SRUC, Scotland's Rural College, we've got a focus on sustainable natural economy, so it fits well with the theme of this project. We have 3 arms. We have education, research, where I sit, and consultancy, all focused on growing the natural economy. So the 3 arms work in partnership across the Scotland, the UK, and beyond. And within SRUC, we have a facility that we've been calling Green Sheep, and it allows us to measure methane emissions directly from individual sheep. And you can see some pictures of the trailer here. So it's a trailer that has 12 portable accumulation chambers. So you can see one chamber there at the bottom with the sheep in it. And using these, we can measure individual methane emissions from sheep using the chambers over a short period of time. So the sheep go in for about 50 minutes each, and I'll speak a bit more about the methods when we go on to the activities slide. But that's what we're hoping to bring to the project. So our capability of measuring individual methane emissions from sheep and build that into an experimental design that will help answer some of the questions that Adrian posed at the beginning.
Great, thanks, Nicola. I'll then hand over to Holly Jones at the Yorkshire Agricultural Society.
Hi, yeah, good morning, everybody. I work within the charitable activities team at the Yorkshire Agricultural Society. You probably best know us for organising the Great Yorkshire Show, but what we actually do is all the proceeds and profits that we make on the showground go back into our charitable arm. We spend £500,000 a year on supporting food farming and rural businesses in the north of England. We do have an arm within our charitable activities called the Farmer Scientist Network, of which this project falls under. And the Farmer Scientist Network is a grassroots initiative which supports farmers that want to innovate and link them with the right academia and research partners to ensure that we meet those ambitions.
Great, thanks, Holly. And then we're also joined, so not today because they're unable to make it, but another partner within the project is the Game and Wildlife Conservation Trust, and our key contact there is Ellie Rayner. So again, there's a really importance to ensure that the environmental side of things and the wildlife and conservation things are covered within the project, and GWTC are well positioned for that with their vision for thriving countryside, rich in game and other wildlife. So they're going to be a key partner within the project in terms of looking at the forage species analysis and working very closely with Adrian and myself on the ground. I know, Adrian, you've had lots of conversation with Ellie, probably on project initiation and project setup, and it was very much a partnership between Adrian and the GWTC, and the additional partners were sort of brought in as required. So again, GWTC were very keen and very key in instigating this project in the first place. I don't know if I've missed anything on GWTC.
No, you haven't, Nicola. That's really helpful. Ellie's a ball of fire, so she keeps.
Yeah, she apologises for not being here today. They're doing a 3-day demonstration filming site within their organisation to get a lot of material. So she sends her apologies for today, but she is a key driving force within this project. And then our final project partner is the Agri-Tech Centre. So we have Professor Mark Young, who's a sheep geneticist, and Hayley Jerry working on the project. Hayley is project manager, so keeps us all in check and makes sure we tick the right boxes and we do everything we have to do within the project to keep the funders happy. And we've got obviously expertise there from Mark Young, which is great. So he's a well-known sheep geneticist, so been doing sheep genetics for decades, so we're in very good hands there with Mark, looking at the sort of, the heritability and then the genetic side of things when we're looking at data in a bit more detail. And obviously Agri-Tech spans across the whole of the UK. So again, they're a national organisation that can help and probably have expertise across the whole agricultural sector. So if something comes up within the project that we don't have already within the project partner team, they could probably dive deeper within their organisation to find as an expert if something crops up that we weren't expecting. So they're, again, a key partner and very much key in the organisation, the project management side of things. So project activities, again, I'm going to hand over to Nicola Lamb here as the expert on what we're doing in terms of the methodology, but you hopefully sort of see we're in good hands within the project so far.
Yeah, so as Adrian and Nicola were explaining, we're going to measure methane emissions from these sheep on the different types of vegetation on Adrian's farm. But just to highlight that in the bigger picture that they were discussing before of the right sheep in the right place, measuring the methane is one part of that. So it's also dependent on things like effects on biodiversity, effects on production and things as well. So Adrian has some data on these things as well, but within the project, the aim is to really try and measure the direct methane emissions and see how that feeds into this bigger picture. So as I mentioned, we have the capability in SRUC to measure individual methane emissions, so using our green sheep trailer. So you can see the trailer there. There's 12 chambers on the trailer that are about 1 metre cubed. So individual sheep go into the chambers for about 50 minutes. Before they go into chambers, we take them off grazing. So this is one of the big benefits of this system, is that the animals can be on grazing before they're measured. They don't have any feed at all while they're in the chambers, and there's no bedding or anything in the chambers. So it may be a bit boring for the sheep, but they generally just tend to lie down and ruminate. So we measure the oxygen, methane and carbon dioxide levels when the sheep go in, and carbon dioxide and methane are at 0 at the starting point. And then we measure the changes in these gases in the chamber over that 50-minute period, and then we release the animals. And from that 1 hour measurement, we can get very good predictions of the amount of methane that individual animal produces per day. So this system's come from New Zealand and it's been tested very rigorously in New Zealand, and they have the same system in Ireland as well, where they've done a lot of testing as well. So we're quite confident that we'll see reliable results using these chambers. So we're going to have most of our focus on an experiment that will take place in the autumn. So it'll be after the lambs have been weaned from the ewes. We're going to take the mature ewes of the two breeds that Adrian spoke about, so the native Swaledale and the half-bred Texel Cross Swaledale. And we're going to have them in mixed breed groups on 3 different pasture types on the farm. So the improved grasslands, the species-rich grasslands, and the moorlands. And so within each of those areas, we'll have 20 Swaledale and 20 half-bred ewes of that project subgroup, and we'll take them off the vegetation and put them through our methane chambers in batches of 12. So each of those batches will be mixed between the 2 different breeds and the 3 different pasture types, so that we can get good comparisons between the methane emissions from each of the treatments. So we'll take repeated measurements 2 weeks apart. A lot of the work that was done in Ireland and New Zealand found that that was best to get a representative reading from each individual sheep. So that's our plan for the autumn, to take these measurements, then process the data and do some comparisons to look at how the different breeds of sheep are producing methane when they're on the different pasture types, and see if whatever differences we see on one pasture type is the same on the others that we measure. So just to mention what we've done so far, as I said, most of the experimental work will happen in the autumn, although the lambs will be born and reared from these ewes before then, and there'll be data recorded on that so that we have some background data on the ewes that we're using. But we've done a bit of the groundwork so far. So the project partners visited Adrian's farm in October to have a look at the different types of vegetation and the sheep they had on the farm. And there was also a visit by the SRUC pack technician to see how it was going to all work in practice when we take the pack trailer down there. So we now have quite a good plan in place of how we're going to do the experimental work, which fields will be used, where the pack chambers will be located, so that we can take the animals from the 3 vegetation types into the pack trailer and get a good comparison between the breeds and the diets. So we've now decided on dates to do this in mid-September. The first measurements be taken, and the second one's in early October. And we have all the databases in place to feed the data into, and to do our calculations to produce the data for grams per day of methane from each of these sheep. There's been a bit of work also going on in terms of the knowledge transfer work, and I think I'll hand over to Holly to speak a bit more about that.
Yeah, so in order to amplify the messaging from the project, what's worked well, what hasn't worked well, and successes, we've got a series of knowledge exchange events booked in. The project group will be speaking at the Great Yorkshire Show as part of the Tech Talk programme, and we will also have a forage display in situ in that area. We also have booked in attendance at the Westmoreland Show, and we are scoping out potential opportunity to talk about the results of the Northern Farming Conference. I've also booked in some time for us to do some engagement with the farming community at the Massam Sheep Fair in September, and we hope to do some small workshops for about 20 to 25 farmers, 3 upland workshops, hopefully scheduled in the late autumn, early winter.
Brilliant. Thanks, Holly. So yeah, as we say, we're kind of in project inception. So we have done a bit of groundwork, which is great. But we can't obviously do a lot of the KE side of it until we've got the data from the pack chambers. So we're in that kind of, not, I don't want to say a lull because there's still lots going on, but we're in the time where we can't talk about anything because we've not got the data. But we've got, as Holly said, we've got lots of plans in place to do a lot of KE. And then next year there'll be.
I think everyone's busy. Everyone's busy lambing at the moment. So
exactly.
I don't know how many people are actually on the call?
So it's great that people have joined us already. We've created a project logo, which you saw on the first slide, and we've done like a draft sort of like leaflet. So it'll be a little like a business card type kind of size. It'll have a QR code that'll hopefully send people to more information. So any events that the project team is at and about anyway, just through their normal day job, we can have those little leaflets that we can hand out to people that are interested. And again, have like pop-ups and banners at like all of the summer shows for NSA events. And then obviously next year's kind of round of events will be the ones where we can do a lot more of the seminars, workshops, and a bit more of the detailed KE, because we'll have the information, the data from the project to share with you all. So that leads us nicely onto AOB or the Q&A side of things. So I'll just try and stop sharing my screen so I can see you all again. Is that working? Sorry, I've got that many screens open at the moment. And I will stop recording. Hopefully